from Crafty Hope, and I am here for another one of my jewelry making for beginners series. This one is going to be video number 9, but technique number 4. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to use crimp beads and basically crimp on beading wire. So all you really need for this technique is some beading wire, which I have here, some beads, crimp beads, these little tiny things, and then some crimping pliers. Now if you don't have crimping pliers, don't fret, you can always use your chain nose pliers. They work just as well to smash and crimp them as the specialty crimp pliers, but the crimp pliers have these special little notches in them that help you secure those crimp beads really well. Now I'm going to show you how to do that, but first let me tell you there's a couple ways to start your crimping technique. You can start with some kind of bead stopper on the end of your beading wire. Here I've got a traditional bead stopper. It's basically just a spring with these little handles, and you put your wire in there just like that, and it keeps the beads from falling off the end of your wire. Back when I first started, I used this technique, which is just a piece of Scotch tape wrapped around the wire, and when you get to that portion you can usually just pull that Scotch tape off. And that's how I use as a bead stopper. Or you can go ahead and put your crimp on your beading wire and use that as your bead stopper. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. That's what we're going to start with. So go ahead and get your beading wire, and you're going to slide your crimp bead right on there just like you would a regular bead. Now you're going to go down a couple of inches, probably not that many, and you're going to take the end of your beading wire and thread it back through that bead. Let me see if I can do it. And then I like to pull that bead up, that crimp bead up. I've pulled it up so that I can get a loop in here as big or as small I want. Now that if I push it back down, I'll have a pretty big loop, and if I push it back up, I'll have a pretty small loop. So that's up to you what size loop you want. From there, I'm going to take my crimp pliers. I'm going to move this out of the way. My camera seems to be focusing on all these things in the background. I'm going to take them away so it'll focus on this. Alright, so like I said, your crimping pliers have 2 sets of notches. Now the one toward the front smashes it down a little, and the one towards the back has a little divot in it that will fold that so you can move it back up to the one at the front and smash it again, and it basically folds it over. So I'm going to start with the one in the front and just smash it into an oval, and then I'll move it to the second one and it bends it a little. See if you can see that bend. I don't know that you can. But then I turn it slightly, and I move it back to the little one in the front, and I bend it all the way. And then you have a completed crimped bead. So easy. Just like that, that bead is crimped. Now, some people would like to use crimp covers. I don't often use them. They're basically just a little Pac-Man shaped bead in the same color of whatever you want, different metals. I cover that, I believe, in my 3rd video on findings. I'll try to link to that in here, and you can go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But once you have your bead crimped, you still got this little tail on there. Now, I go ahead and keep that tail. It just helps add some security to your bead, because you've got a double layer of beading wire here. So I've got these beads here, and I'm just going to throw a couple on. I grabbed some of my bead soup, and I'm not trying to make anything specific. I just kind of want to show you how to finish up this crimp bead technique. If I can get these on here. Now as I'm doing that, I want to make sure that that little tail that's in there gets tucked in with these beads. And so I'm just going to keep adding my beads. I'm trying to get a few on here so that I have enough to make a tail on the other end as well. So I am just adding my beads, I think I'm going to do maybe one more just like that. Now this, of course, obviously can't be a necklace or a bracelet. It's just a tiny little thing, and I can see my tail sticking up there, so I'm going to go ahead and push that in there before I go back to my crimp beads. So I'm going to grab another crimp bead. Now let me go ahead and show you what's happened here. I picked a bead. The first one I picked up was so big that it came down and covered that crimp. Now that could be a good thing or a bad thing. That could eventually make it fall off, or you could use that as a crimp cover depending on how secure that will go over there. So like, I'm trying to see if I can get it back over there on purpose instead of accidentally. Yeah, and so it covers it, and it's pretty secure. So if I wanted to, I could leave that there. I'm not, you know, again, I'm not making anything here, so it's not a big deal. And I'm going to go back to my crimp bead. I'm going to thread that crimp bead back on. Let's move this stuff out of the way again. I've got that crimp bead. I'll put it all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to take that end here, and then again, go back through it. Sorry if y'all can hear my dog in the background. And then I'm going to go through the first 1 or 2 beads that are on here and pull that tail through. Now it's important when you're doing this to go ahead and try to make sure everything slides down and you don't have a bunch of spaces between it. And I'm holding my beads and pulling to get my loop about down to where I want. Alright. Again, I'm going to check and make sure there's not a whole bunch of spaces between my beads. And I've got my loop about the size I want. And I'm not going to trim that. I'm going to go ahead and crimp this again. I'm trying to see if I can get some light over here. Let's see if I can get some light for y'all to see. Alright, and again, I'm going to use that first space and press. And then move down to the second one. And press, and again it curves it, and then I'm going to turn and press it closed, and there I have a completed crimp bead. From there I will go ahead and trim, and I'm going to use my and go in there and trim that beading wire off, and I have a completed little section. Now what is using crimp beads for? Well, first off, any kind of time you want to use beading wire, it's the best way to finish it off. For a necklace, here's a necklace, and here it's an old one I made, probably one of my first ones, and it's got a little crimp bead here at the end. You can also do like floating beads like this, where you put a crimp bead on either side. Or you can even make small sections like this that are great for either making a chain of some kind or earrings. Now I would normally just use a head pin, or actually an eye pin I guess, to get the loops on either side to make a chain or something like that. But if you don't have that, the beading wire with some crimp beads works great. One last thing I want to show you is go ahead and show you how you can use your chain nose pliers to crimp a bead. So I'm going to just slide the crimp bead on here. Y'all excuse my dog. The wind's blowing outside and she thinks it's coming for her. So I slid my bead on. I'm folding it over and sliding it down. And so I've made my little loop. And I'm going to just take my chain nose pliers and flatten that bead as best I can. Now that's all you really have to do to secure crimp beads, is flatten them. The other pliers, they give it that curve and that bend to doubly secure it, but really it's not absolutely necessary. So you can just crimp it with your flat nose pliers. Simple, easy, basic. That's it for now, I think. If you have any questions about this technique or other suggestions or anything, please let me know. Make sure to like, subscribe, all those things. Give me the thumbs up, and I will see y'all later. Thanks. Bye.